Hello, IDS here with another ranking video. This time for the Glatorian Vanilla Edition. The last one was the Glatorian Legends. Hopefully that means I will chat a lot less nonsense at the beginning, because you've kind of got an idea of what my general views on 2009 are. Check that one out as well, just to get some of the context that I usually ramble on about at the start of these. But to give you the specific context on these, the Mystica, of course, were very disappointing sets. I think everyone can sort of agree that the Toa were really lackluster, not great representations of their characters, and to be honest, the Mystica Makuta weren't very good either. The heavy use of matoran parts, I think, really hurt those sets. And then, you know, with the Toa, sorry, my throat is a bit dying, so I might start coughing in your ear for this whole thing. But the Toa being another wave of silver, grey, this, that, and the other, we were getting very tired. I think we forget, mainly because the Metro years were so heavily grey focused, that the Visorak, the Paraka, the Inika, the Baraki, and the Mari actually had a lot of colour in them. But, you know, this deep into Bionicle, I think every time we saw grey, it was like, ugh, and it felt so prevalent. So when the Glatorian came out, and to see basically none of that was great. It was like, oh wow, the colour is back. We're seeing some old favourites come to the forefront. Some tans, some Mata blues, some Mata reds. And then, you know, elemental weapons were back as well. I think, which makes sense, that for the longest time, I think from the Toa Nuva onwards, basically, the weapons characters had were silver. At the end of the day, blades are silver, it makes sense. With only really other metallic exceptions here and there, such as, you know, Jala's sword being gold because his armor's gold, Avak's weapons being gunmetal, etc. Like, they're all metallic colors, which makes sense for weapons, but part of early Bionicle's charm and the fact that these are elemental warriors means that it's fun getting colored weapons. And these guys coming around, it was great to see that again. So honestly, the overall visuals of what they were doing with these sets felt like a little bit of a breath of fresh air to a degree. Mentioned it last time, we are in extreme Inika build fatigue at this point. It's like, oh my goodness, another wave of these guys. And with the soft reboot, you know, not only are you using the same parts library again with hardly any new parts, but you now have to buy that these are a different species on a different planet, even though they look basically like Toa. Hard sell for me. So wasn't a big fan of them from that perspective. Again, I mentioned in that other video that maybe I'll do a 2009 opinion video, just because I have a lot to talk about, and don't necessarily want to drag this one down like I did the last one. I think the last one I rambled longer than ever, despite, you know, not having that much to say about those boring ass sets. So definitely I prefer the Glatorian as a whole over the Glatorian Legends. And then we did see some slight innovations here. I think I'll speak on the one Glatorian, I guess, overall aspect that I didn't speak on in the other video is the Glatorian head. Not a big fan. Again, this piece ended up being so prevalent for LEGO, considering it lived on through Hero Factory, basically, and even the G2 Toa head is basically like a metrified version of the Glatorian head. It felt like a reversal of system, in the same way that CCBS has a direction of build, where it goes socket to ball, while most of Bionicle was socket to socket or ball to ball, where it feels like there's a change in direction. Bionicle heads historically were received into a socket, like the ball joint was built as part of the head, while these guys flipped it where the socket was the head, which is fine, there's no problem with that. It caused what feels like a little bit of incompatibility, because technically the Matoran introduced that, where, you know, it's very difficult to use classic heads with those pieces, which makes them awkward, and I felt like was an unnecessary change of direction that essentially just makes those builds, like those designs, harder to use. And the Glatorian somewhat adopted that because they moved to using that head style. Now, mind you, the Glatorian head is leagues above the Matoran head. The Matoran head might be my least favorite head they ever designed. But it continued aspects of it where it's just a fully trans head. We lose sort of detail in the face because it's fully trans, and to the detriment of the Glatorian, because the Glatorian and the Agori, actually, those are their faces, and they do show them more than Toa showed the Mata heads. For example, the Metru heads, like, Toa's faces were pretty well covered, but this was the first year where the the face was able to be on show through some of these helmets. Now, looking at the Glatorian as a whole, I think only really Malum shows it off, but especially with the Agori and some of the other ones, like, that Glatorian head was the face of these characters, and it just looks like a washed out trans blob Iron Man ripoff. So, while I can appreciate the upright neck compared to the Matoran head, not a fan of the head. I spoke on my issues with the hands in the last video. Again, not that great for posing. An abstract hand is better. It's just more versatile and actually allows for more posing because you're not locked into a single hand expression, I guess. I like the Thornax launchers. Great launcher. I like the smaller version they made of it later as well. Really versatile, compatible with Zamospheres. Thornax Fruit don't necessarily care. I didn't speak on them in the last video, but the Glatorian also introduced this little game where they all have little life counters on them. I don't care. Like, it's cool. It was actually just a great way to get Metro chests, bonus Metro chests, and for example, in this way, Vorox is a tan one. Fantastic recolor. And then also for some of the upright characters that had them on the back, it kind of gave them the look of the gears that the Tormata had. It'd be great if these were biomechanical beings. That would have been fantastic. It would be a nice throwback, despite not actually giving us gear functions, but these guys are not that. Okay, I think that's everything I didn't talk about. Like, it's yeah, the game, I don't know. Do people even remember it? It's a little bit half-baked, considering not every character had a shield, not every character built around it. It feels like a last-minute addition. Okay, that's enough rambling. I will not necessarily go into Baron Magna specifically here. I think we'll keep it to the sets, keep it to the characters, or maybe this one won't clock in at an hour. Okay, so first things first. Who is my least favorite Glatorian set? That would be Tarix. Very easily Tarix. He's just the worst. So looking at Tarix as a whole, let's cover the positives. Weapons. Really cool weapons. Really like these blades. Like, incredibly underrated pieces. Great to get another metallic weapon, which wasn't just silver. These are gold. The blades look really unique. Nothing really like it. And having the sort of the water projection blade there is great. Harkens back to something like the Hordika weapons in a way, where we've got the kind of the molding different colors there. Not the biggest fan of how he kind of holds them, and I really don't like how the Thornax launcher is just hanging off the side of one of them. Really awkward. But the blades themselves, pretty cool. He has gold Inika armor. That's a great recolor. Almost feels like you could go back and use them on Jala and Inika. I feel like they're a nice set there. Get 3 of them on this set. He ushers in the Marder Blue return. Berix and Tarix reintroduce Marder Blue, which was largely absent. Gadunka had it, and I believe one of the Visorak had it. But, you know, it felt like it was just a little bit of a miss for a while there. So getting Marder Blue back is great. And yeah, I think that's about it. The rest of it is either negative or boring. This set is incredibly boring. Look at it. It's just... there's nothing to write home about. Really, really basic Inika style build. Just using Metru limbs instead of Inika limbs. They don't really do much for him. He's also extremely skinny. The Inika build in general is a little too thin for my liking. And even though technically he has his life counter on his back to flesh him out a bit to make it look like he has like Marder style gears, doesn't do too much for it because they've used an Inika shoulder as his chest and like embedded it in. It's not like sitting on top of armor or anything like that. So he is like anorexic as hell. It also doesn't really cover his body all that well. While it covers this midsection, it's like typically we have armor on top of here, and now this actually is the most forward protruding part of his body. So yeah, it's like he's sunken in, gone through mass starvation. You even think about Vizon, who had a similar sort of armor iteration. This was part of it, and then he had Metru chest to create the chest area to give him pronounced armor. This guy, he looks almost like scrawny and naked. Yeah, he just looks really weak and frail. I mentioned already, like the Thornax launcher placement on him is really awkward. The way he holds his staffs is a bit awkward, almost like a little bit like another Technic Axle at the bottom of his hands. That would be better. His arms and legs are the same length, which is something we've seen a lot in Bionicle post-Inika build. However, with the extra length of the Glatorian wrist, his arms look a little too long for him. This is a problem across a lot of the Glatorian sets, but for some reason it looks extra pronounced on him. I think it's because he looks so scrawny. Now, the Mada Blue, while I already listed it as a positive, I actually think it's a negative for this set. It doesn't look good. I think some other colors interact well together. I actually don't think Mada Blue and Metru Blue work all that great together, and especially the way it's distributed here. Like on his feet and his hands. I guess he's wearing shoes and gloves. I don't know, it doesn't look nice. Those colors don't mesh as well as some other color combos. His mask his helmet is kind of mid. It's just boring. It's not bad, it's just boring. Kind of like how the hose connects to the bottom there. But yeah, I could give or take that. Doesn't really have any story relevance. The fact, why does he have a breathing apparatus? He's never depicted in water or anything like that, so a bit pointless. Shoulder spikes are cool, I guess. Yeah, no complaints there, I guess. Yeah, at least they're doing something with those lightsaber holes. But yeah, easily the most boring. Don't think he looks particularly good. I mean, he's okay, I guess. He's not bad. He's just completely just mid, really. Easily the worst of this wave. Yeah, even some of his positives kind of flip and act as negatives as well. So, not the biggest fan of our friend Tarix here, who is in 5th place. The poster boy of the wave himself, Gresh. Gresh, interestingly, feels like he's a lot cooler just from the way he's portrayed in commercials and sets, the comics, than he actually does look like in person. Especially the comics, they really made Gresh look pretty badass. And it's funny that his set looks far more badass than they do in the movie. In the movie, they make him look like a little dweeb. He acts like a little dweeb. But he's got some pretty cool stuff going with him. His weapons, awesome. Like, harkening back to the Likan shield. Having, split, he holds them like tonfas, but like these split swords that become a shield. Definite Likan throwback. And to see another piece like that in G2 with Tahu was great. His colors are cool. Even though we got lime green back in 2007, we didn't actually see it used that much with dark green. Now I'm thinking about it, Elec really had it, but Elec's like pronounced spines and face in that kind of yellowy greeny color kind of downplayed this combo. So it looks cool. I don't mind the black base color to him. I don't mind black as a grounding color. It's pretty neat. His weapon inclusion here, his Thornax launcher inclusion here is better than Tarek's, because it still sits like a pistol in his hand when he's holding his shields like that. So having it in that pistol variety, just that configuration looks a lot better than it just hanging off the end of one of his sticks. And yeah, I appreciate them trying to do something different with the Inika build. It's not as crazy an innovation as some of the other attempts to mix it up this wave, but it is appreciated. I do like those shoulder spikes there. Now I'm going to touch on one of my own mocks, not to toot my own horn, but essentially one of my mocks is sort of like a fix to this. But yeah, like, I appreciate the attempt to be a little bit different. I like the fact that we got a recolor of that piece as well, of the body armor, to get it in a solid green, which we did not get with Kongu. His mask is cool. A bit nondescript with the kind of the grill face, but it looks pretty neat from some angles. It's not my favorite, but it looks cool. Obviously matches his blades, his bladed shoulders. Yeah, he's got very scrawny limbs, which is fine. I do appreciate the spikes on his thighs. Those look cool, but using these Paraka armors on his upper arms makes him look like he has big biceps and really skinny thighs, which is not the greatest matchup there. So what are the negatives? I think Gresh is just shy of being well balanced. While I appreciate the attempt to change up the Inika torso, by having it sit a little bit further forward, so you can put these in there. It does leave a massive gap here, which isn't great from really any other angle than the front. And also his choice of having very skinny limbs, paired with this body, again, might photograph well, and when you work around that in drawings it's cool, but in person it gives him a very bulky torso, because basically his body is thicker, I understand, in like a build, but then on really skinny limbs, so it doesn't look so great. Again, I really like this idea. So when one of the versions of my self-mock Toa Ganon, look how rare it is that I talk about my own mocks, I sort of fixed, quote-unquote, this build to my liking, I guess. I moved the spikes from Gresh to the back within Ica Torso, filled out these gaps with these Nuparu claws to kind of carry on this spike to look. Again, in my opinion, it maintains a similar look of these over the shoulders, while not leaving any gaps here. That does hinder articulation for sure, but you know, it was done for the look. And then I think a key thing they needed to do was I've included a new 2008 variant of the 2007 variant of the Slicer foot to fit in this gap here. I think that is very important for this build, and I think would basically smooth over a lot of this issue here, to just kind of fill that in. And also with this enhanced chest, obviously I'll put a little bit more armor on it, give him more heavy duty limbs. I think having this thicker armor here calls for thicker limbs. I get the look. He's a very agile looking character. It's just the body looks a little bit thick. So close to matching the vibe. As much as I don't want to detract from the innovation here, I honestly think he might look better if this was flush against his body and those were moved behind, to the pinholes behind, which is somewhat achieved here. Again, not to be like, oh, my mock is better. It is what it is. And for those who care, this was a previous version of Ganon. Obviously, I think the more iconic version is the one I made for my series All Stars, which has basically nothing in common with the previous version because it was for something else. But there you go. That's a mock of mine I made in 2010. No, 2011. I think early 2011. But yeah, so that's why Gresh sits where he sits. Go away, Ganon. Okay, what's in fourth place? This is another one where I think I want to be objective versus what I like. So I might just run through a bunch of the pros and cons of these guys. I know who my number one is of these next few, and then I'll place them, because I think there's some biases that I have and some things that I like aspects of that would personally make me rank them higher, but I don't feel right ranking them higher just because certain sets look more cohesive. So let's talk on Malum. Malum is cool. Malum is another one of these tiny little round guys, and I think it really works. He, despite having a lot in common with Karabar, and like he looks visually distinct. I think not using the rest of his armor pieces for him that sets him apart. Despite these Kalmar feet shoulders kind of being a bit weird for articulation, and leaving him unarmored from certain sides, for some reason it really works with posing him. Like even here they're kind of riding up near the top of his traps. It's a cool look. These flame claws are pretty neat as well. I like the silver editions here. They do feel like there are armor on top while not sacrificing an elemental colored weapon. He just feels like a little ball of rage, and I prefer his face to that of Akar and Berix. I'm not a big fan of any of the Glatorian faces that show the Glatorian head for reasons I said before. It's like a translucent head basically means the details get washed out and it looks abstract, but I prefer his version to those two. Other than that, he's really, really generic. He's pretty basic in an Ica build. But unlike a Gelu or an Akar, though he is very basic, he visually looks very different. Like I don't look at this guy and I go, oh, that's Harley in Ica. Like he does enough to make him not look like a clone. I'm not sure how I feel necessarily about having the Keith orange here. I actually think it detracts from the set. I feel like if he had a grey Inika torso, and I'm not pushing for more grey in these sets, but I think it would look more grounded. I don't even mind the Ketorange like creeping in here at his pelvis, but I do think maybe the Ketorange Inika body piece is a little much and feels a little out of place. But it's a cool weapon. He looks cool overall. Again, he's a little tough, little armored ball man. He's a little round. He almost reminds me of like a cannon bolt from Ben 10 sort of build. Really, you know, he just has that sort of vibe to him. The chest is a bit exposed. Especially because he's a little pea brain. A lot of the Glatorian heads and helmets were tiny compared to how big Konohi were at this point in the story. I'm sorry, in this point in Bionicle's run. So he is definitely one of the pea brain guys, and it makes this area look really exposed. And the fact that the Glatorian neck takes up less room than if he had a standard Bionicle hand holding a Metru head, so this is a big con from him. But again, that's I guess that's a problem with this piece in general. Shoulder cannon. Again, it's for me, it's a bit of a shame that has lost a little bit of its unique flair. Not unique flair, sorry, that's not the word. I praised Nuparu Inika a lot for having that, because it felt suited for his character. And then for sets like Maxilus, he's a robot. For someone like Pohatu Fantoka, again, his armor is shifting, it's technological, it's adapting to him. Great, that makes sense. Why does Malum have a shoulder cannon? Beyond the fact that he just can't hold his Thornax launcher. Doesn't really make sense, and he's a tribal guy, he's a fully tribal organic guy, he has high-tech remote firing capabilities. I don't know how that works, but it's whatever. It's probably the best way to execute that for this set, despite it being a weird choice for the character, I guess. So, those are my overall thoughts on Malum. Where is he? Oh, he's over here. But yeah, again, I think of the next few, he's probably the most generic. But again, his part usages go a long way to making him feel pretty unique. Even down to like using the Hordika feet. They're not as used as some of the other Inika parts. Inika era, some of the reused catalog that we always see, and even using the Kalma feet, which again didn't get as much use as perhaps they could have, go a long way to making him look unique. And his colors, he's just neat. He uses grey well as a grounding color. Now Vorox. Vorox is very cool. I really like Vorox. I'm kind of biased, as you can probably tell from my rankings. I really like stone sets, and going back to a traditional stone color scheme was such a wow moment. Like, it's weird to me that it didn't really occur to them to try doing tan earlier. I don't know. It's a lighter color. Again, it's not so flashy. I think if Huki Inika had a tan secondary color and they pushed him to be the metallic stone guy, that could have worked. I mentioned there as well that his secondary color also could have been dark orange, which would have been preferable actually, because it would have been his color, his kind of unique color, though actually so was tan. Regardless, weird that they took so long to bring tan back, but great to get a lot of very useful parts in tan here. We get the Metru hip in tan, fantastic. Metru limbs in tan, great. Paraka feet fully in tan, awesome. I found it interesting that we got so many Paraka feet in stone colors, and these in tan. Avax feet in brown. We even got these in solid brown in Ogram from Hero Factory. With the life counter piece, weird place to put it, but I don't care. The fact that we got a tan Metru chest, mwah, beautiful, love it. And also there's elements of this thing that work because he's sort of like a creature. With the Voroxin story, there's a lot going on with them, and a bunch of them get sort of enslaved by Malum. It almost feels like he's broken free from somewhere, and he's got like part of a foot shackle left on his foot. It's always sort of felt like that. Getting extra limbs in tan were great. Like, I think with certain sets, I mentioned like Kalma and stuff, could have done more to make them look more animalistic. And it's not like getting extra limbs and stuff was out of the question. Bionicle did do it from time to time, and here's an example of that. Using not only an Avmatoran limb, but another Metru limb in tan, which is great. And then my favorite piece in this set. This is all connected to a Mada foot in the back in tan. Amazing. Without this set, Jevik doesn't exist. That's just as it is, so I'm very biased with this character. I really like the Vorox armor. I always called it the Vorox armor, but it came with the scroll as well. Really great piece. Again, love getting new additions to the quote-unquote Inika building system. You gotta if you're going to keep giving us these exact same builds, you got to give us new shit. Great piece. Really bizarre that it existed throughout Hero Factory and then also into G2. Very strange. But hey, I don't dislike the piece. It is cool. It gives us a right-angled connection as well, which is interesting. And also, because of the way they've colored these sets, it gives Vorok some brown. A nice final hurrah to brown in Bionicle Generation 1, which is well appreciated. I think the longer arms, the fact that arms and legs are the same length, with the longer wrists due to the Glatorian hands, isn't a problem here per se, because again, he's like a bit of a creature. He also has a long metro neck. You can't really see it in this picture. That works for him as well. It helps with this kind of hunched stance, and it allows him to get his head low, so there's clearance for the stinger tail. One thing I really don't like about this set, and I mentioned this in the previous weapon, is he was one of the canister sets to not have new weapons at all. He just has Hukimari blades, which I said in the Hukimari video are pretty generic weapons. Like, they're okay. They work perfectly fine here. But yeah, they're just okay. Kind of glad they came as a pair again, though. It keeps them visually similar. And the interesting thing about this piece is because it has this sort of like cutout here, again, it gives him like space for his head. I like the helmet a lot. Looks pretty cool. Gets across the idea that this is a biomechanical like scorpion pincer type thing here. In story, it's not that, I guess. I can't remember if the Vorok's heads are like canonically their heads, because I know they are a slightly different, like, devolved tribe. I don't remember if those are actually helmets or that's actually what their faces look like now. Should have probably looked that up, but I forget. But yeah, another thing I don't like is he just has a backwards Enika torso as his body armor. I don't mind it as much as on Pohatu Mystica, because Pohatu Mystica is just a weird ass figure. It's better than Gorast. Gorast's backwards torso was grey for some reason. This one is black. At least there is black throughout the color scheme. Though the black is sort of the undercoat, so having it be the main color of his body is weird and a bit out of place. It doesn't look terrible, but yeah, it definitely feels like a bit of a cop-out there. And honestly, the worst thing about this set actually are the blue 3-length pins used throughout. So in 2008, alongside the color locking of the 2-length axle in red, they color locked the 3-length pin in blue. For some reason, Vorok's has all of his armor connected this way. And you think, oh, maybe it's to keep the piece stable. No, Skrull has these pieces as well. And he uses the 2-length axle. So there's literally no explanation of why those pieces exist. I'm not the first person to come up with this theory, but I've always thought that perhaps those were used for some sort of combiner. Because obviously, those, if you're using PC or limited part count, might as well throw them in. There's no evidence of this ever. And then, as we know, 2009 basically had nothing. So, yeah, very weird. It does really distract, because I mentioned before that in the previous Glatorian ranking that I have a better time ignoring blue pins versus red axles. But considering this is a hot color scheme, I actually think red would be less out of place here than the blue. So we have lots of spots of blue here, which are quite distracting on this set. Yeah, those are the kind of the major points there. Vorok's overall is pretty cool. Honestly, I rate him higher than probably the final product is, mainly due to the volume of great recolors he has. And in fact, because he's so recolored, I'm almost a little bit more forgiving of his reuse of weapons. I don't think that should be enough to not justify giving us a unique weapon here, but similar to when in 2006, when they took certain things away, they gave us extra stuff. I feel like, okay, you skimped on the weapons here, so we get extra limbs, extra classic parts recolored. I feel like they paid their way to make it feel sort of earned with Vorok's. So yeah, while Vorok's doesn't innovate on the Enika build in a major way, the fact that we have this thicker body built around the martyr foot with extra limb parts, new armor, new recolors of classic beloved pieces, Vorok's, actually comes out looking quite favorable. So, again, unlike the Glatorian legends, but like Kina, this, even when they're doing something basic, they are innovating a little bit. So the effort was definitely felt on this set. Okay, so that's Vorox and Malum, and then we'll run through Skrull. Now, Skrull is one I feel like I've turned around on. When Skrull came out, for some reason I wasn't too hot on it. But on reflection and after I got the set, it sort of clicked with me. Especially from this angle and a lot of pictures of Skrull, this area looks really blank, and I just look at this build and I'm like, that's gotta look really stupid. I mean, I know they're trying something different, but like, I don't think it looks very good. It looks much better in person. It really does. And this being a low angle shot doesn't do it any favors. Skrull, a lot of his CG pictures as well frame him from a low angle. He looks better up top where you can see most of his head. It sort of covers this area. And to be honest, again, it's different. He isn't like necessarily like a traditional quote unquote Toa style humanoid. So some weirdness is actually okay. And I'll say this. Skrull does the best job of making this look like an alien. Of all the Glatorian, this truly looks like something. Despite it using a lot of pre-existing pieces, looks like something different. If you want me to buy any of these Glatorian from another planet, something completely alien to the Matoran universe, this would be it. And I think it really is due to these pieces. The cohesive pieces that he uses, the Skrull blades, the head, and the shield all matching, are very unlike anything Bionicle had in terms of the runes, in terms of these middle sections. They all work together very well to create this very unique look to him that doesn't really look like anything else in the G1 library, without looking jarring. Like, I don't think these look out of place on other stuff, but they are very unique. So yeah, even the choice of using the Metru limbs here feels intentional. The very ridged pieces here match some of the ridges here. Even the foot, they used the spiked foot, which is ridges. Like, it feels intentionally designed, and I kind of see what they were going for. And I think a lot of my early hate of this set when it first came out was a little undeserved, if you think about it. I don't necessarily think, what I originally thought was not that great of a attempt at doing something new was so bad. I think they actually did a decent job innovating here. The Skrull and Vorox armor, getting through those in black was super, super useful. He also has somewhat of a shackle version of the life counter thing that Vorox had. Cool. Like, for some reason it works with these guys as well. These guys are like cloned, like low-level warrior class things. I can almost imagine some savagery where these guys get like chained up until Tuma unleashes them. The staff build is cool here as well. It would actually be for him for most sets, giving him such a cohesive color scheme. It would almost have been good to get this launcher recolored in black. I think that would have worked very nicely. The half of the Matoro twin cutter here is also very good. Again, giving another piece that has ridges on it, I think it went a long way to making this feel very, very cohesive. Him bringing Marder Red to the forefront as well. Marder Red and Black was not really that common a color scheme. I know the previous wave we had Onua Mystica, who was black with Marder Red highlights, but this is really a dominating color scheme. And great to see kind of Marder Red come back in full strength. Again, with the shield and the blades, they are, to me, a little bit jarring when compared to some of the other pieces. I think they almost kind of lock themselves for just use as Skrull or Rock Tribe mocks, but in the context of this set, that makes sense. Again, he truly feels alien. The head is really cool as well. He is another P-brain, but I think the long, crest to the head works and goes a long way to making him look alien. I think of all the Skrull type heads, not counting Stronius because that's doing its own visual. I mean, between Atticus, Skrull, and Tuma, I think Atticus is probably my favorite of those faces, but Skrull is not far behind. And again, the innovation on the Enika build is appreciated, giving us this right-angled short squat build that truly feels alien. Okay, so what am I thinking here? Well, where does everything sit? Because I think I keep tending to spoil who my number one is. I'm thinking in fourth place, I'm going to put Malum. which is tricky for me to say, because I think as a kid I preferred Malum as a whole to Skrull from the pictures and this, that, and the other. And I think, and you know what, I did actually own Skrull at the time. I just got him significantly later. I think I got him like months after I got the Glatorian that I did. And it really warmed me up. But those initial feelings, I was like, I prefer Malum. But actually, Malum is a little bit generic. He's cool and squat and neat, but he doesn't do anything too crazy. I do like Malum. But again, moving feelings aside, I do think he probably should sit in fourth. Now with Vorox, obviously I have a lot of bias in terms of the colors. And I think in my very, very personal, like very biased opinion, I think I would probably put Vorox at 2, but I don't think he deserves to be at 2. Again, the weird blue pins, the black backwards torso, the fact that while he does innovate on... Well, he doesn't necessarily innovate on the Yonika build, he just has an extra limb. That doesn't change up the build, really. Yeah, so while there's a lot about him that makes me want to put him ahead and put him in number 2, I don't think he deserves to be in number 2. I'll put him in number 3. And again, if I wanted to go my really biased personal route, I probably would put him in number 2 in terms of which one is close in my heart to number 2. And we put Skrull in number 2. I think Skrull sort of deserves it. He does such a good job looking very cohesive, looking pretty alien, actually. Again, nothing in G1 up until this point really looked like this dude. He kind of looks like the Fallen from Transformers. Like there's something truly alien about this dude, with the pieces and the shield, and actually very intentional part reuses here that go towards making something look very unique. And I think on those grounds, especially considering the alien context that Biomagna has and how it didn't really do that great of a job in making it feel alien, Skrull somewhat excels in that sense. So I think for all of that, and then also the fact that he tried doing something new with the Yonika torso, I think he deserves to be number 2. Though, again, I think very personally and close to my heart, I actually do prefer Vorox. And number 1 for me, without really any question, is Strack. I really like Strack. Strack is just cool. He just looks cool. He has big ice pieces as his shoulders. Almost similar to Malum. They're weird because that shoulder design kind of essentially only covers one plane and then it's bare at the back. But these are such cool pieces that I guess don't feel that bionically in terms of like biomechanical elements to them, but because they are so element based, they feel like they would fit in any era. They are cool. They're molded in rubber. They're hollow, so you can kind of put them on top of things. Fantastic piece. Like, it just felt nice seeing some elemental stuff in sets again. And I think in terms of ice, I think elementally, ice didn't get too many like projected pieces where like you've actually got some, I guess, crystalline elements. I think Nuju Hordekas was probably the closest that we got in terms of that, because you know we've got fire elements before, and a lot of flipper type elements for aquatic sets, but it was cool just getting just a straight up ice piece. Again, it feels like an elemental projection versus something biomechanical, but again, that's the other side of Bionicle. He doesn't have ice powers, nor is a biomechanical being, so maybe those aren't so relevant for Strack, but cool pieces nonetheless. He also has the best execution of this right angle thing they got going on. Again, Skrull did it in a slightly different way, but I think it really works here. It seems, when I first saw these pictures, like that's gotta look janky in person, but it really doesn't. And I think a lot of it is how this Yonika shoulder fits at this angle. It creates a very organic angle that masks this hard right angle and creates such a natural look to this body. And I think with the face, with the big underbite, with the slung eyes, with this slouch, it really just works to making him look like, I don't know, like a bit of, he almost looks like I don't think he looks like a Skagti, but almost like a Skagti or like a kind of like, I don't know, even like a stoner vibe. I don't know what I'm like. He just has such personality in his face with his build. It's just a great marrying of design and character. And I really think you can infer a lot about this character just from the way he looks. The rest of him is pretty damn generic, to be honest. Again, he has the same length limbs, Similar problem since the Anika, but I think they, again, because he is a bit of a gangly, weird sort of looking guy, he looks kind of cool. His hair, he almost looks like a cheese string man as well. Well, I guess in America they call it string cheese. I don't know if you even have the same mascot, but it matches the eye shoulders very well. He looks very cohesive. Another cool thing, Strat gave us this axe. This axe is kind of over the top, exaggerated, kind of badass. Again, cool to see it. Another sort of elementally dual molded weapon. Getting the ice and the white plastic together is pretty great. I will say the tubing in it makes it feel a little interesting. I'm not sure how versatile this weapon is when it like looks next to other parts, but it's one of those things where a comedically over-exaggerated elemental weapon just is kind of badass on a base level, really. And I think, it just matches the rest of him. He has a nice mix of dark blue, the light blue, and the white. You might say that, maybe he didn't need those pieces in light blue. He could have just been pure dark blue like Gelu, but actually I think it adds some visual interest to him. I don't think it looks bad. He also has a long neck, and I think, again, it works for he feels like a long, gangly, weird kind of character. And it's just that the set has a lot of personality. And I think this is just sort of a key example of if you're gonna use the same build again, you gotta do something a little bit different. There's nothing else that looks like Strack. Like, if we've got a million Anika builds, Strack really stands apart and looks very unique, while not doing too much, actually, when you boil it down, unique compared to any other Anika build. He has one innovation in his torso, and just through clever piece usages and the right sprinkling of new, bold pieces, he looks pretty different. Again, maybe not so alien as Skrull, but you look at his face, and it's not really that. It doesn't look like a Kanohi, right? It looks distinct, and I think Strack actually works pretty well. So yeah, easily Strack is my number one. Compared to, for example, Gelu, who is the most generic of generic sets afterwards. He really blows him out of the water. And again, both of them both use Metru Vaki limbs in Ica feet. It's like, at a base level, they're not that different, but the minute things Strack does compared to Gelu really demonstrate that. If you put some thought into this, you can make things stand apart. So yeah, and I guess that's my list. Those are my thoughts on the whole. The Glatorian aren't the most mind-blowing sets in the world. I think, especially after the Mystica, they felt like a bit of a breath of fresh air, because the Mystica were just the Toa kind of sucked. The Makuta were a bit... and then especially considering we just had the Nuva, who existed in that elemental, colourful era, and then they had basically none of that for the following year to be very colourful. We're getting Mata Red, we're getting Mata Blue, things like that come back, and coloured weapons return. It felt like, oh man, where was this last year? But, that being said, 2009 as a whole is not necessarily my cup of tea, and as much as I can praise some of these guys for their innovations, they aren't all amazing. They are still essentially using the Anika build again, but at least some concessions were made to mix things up a bit. It is just a shame that basically they didn't continue to build on that, aside from Kina, in that second wave. So that's about it. Shorter than the last one. Luckily, the Glatorian Legends kind of lifted a lot of my rambling that I would have put in this one. So hey, not another hour-long one for you, though. I don't know. Maybe you guys like the long ones. Cool. I'll put out more of these. Eventually, I will do something other than ranking. Monopex and Pals is near enough done. I just need to basically do some audio editing stuff because the voice is driving me a bit mad. And also I think I'm going to put out a complimentary short that kind of ties in with it. So yeah, expect that soon. But yeah, that's me signing off. The Glatorian ranked. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And yeah, that's it. Adios.